And Rick, the point made both by the President and by Martin McGuinness about how Northern Ireland can be an example for other places. Again, we don't want to harp on too much about that because there are arguments about how important those parallels are, but made both by the President and by Martin
Indeed,
McGuinness.
and it's been made, of course, in the past by other politicians. Peter Hayden made a rather sort of famous speech at Chatham House where he talked about Northern Ireland as a beacon. We need all the foreign students we can get at Queen's, so if it's going to attract a lot of people in to study, as Mark says, I mean, that's all to the good. But you know, we can export lessons both positive and negative about how to deal with peace processes, I think, you know, so there are, as Martin McGuinness acknowledged, you know, we haven't got all the answers, but we can perhaps frame the questions in an appropriate way for other places.
It is, in a manner of speaking, a bit of a growth industry, isn't it? I mean, there's talk of a European Centre for Conflict Resolution being brought here, and whilst you can debate whether it really is a role model, whether it isn't a real role model, the fact that people are interested... You can debate it in a spanking
new building that creates
a
couple of hundred jobs.
And we saw, you know, Gareth Gordon in his report earlier seemed to find an awful lot of American students around the place.
I had no idea how many there
are
are
coming here to study a lot of these questions, aren't they?
Particularly at master's level, we get a lot of students from North America, not just from the United States. And we're introducing our own conflict resolution program in conjunction with International Studies at Queen's. So, you know, there is this interest out there, there's no doubt about it. And like Mark, I will have met quite a lot of visiting delegations who are here to try and pick up some, you know, some lessons that they might be able to.
Given the importance of choreography and pretty much everything that's happened here in the last 15 years, wouldn't it have been nice if the President could have announced some kind of concrete outcome from the conference, from the economic conference, if he'd just been able to say, and I can say today that such and such a corporation... I wonder if the fact that he hasn't done that means that there has not been much concrete coming out of it.
That may come a bit later today, I think, because I expect him to make a statement alongside Brown and Cohen, and I think maybe they'll do it at that level.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, but as I understand it, this is still very much work in progress.
Yes,
although the conference itself got a great deal of play in the media, there's not very much which is a tangible set of outcomes, I think, from that yet. It could come later today, but it would have been, I suppose, the real icing on the cake if he was in a position to say that.
And the fact that the President's foot soldiers, there was mention there, Paula Dobriansky and others were working so hard on that conference, also emphasises that there's no way our politicians are simply going to say, go home, because at that particular level, the US Consulate here, US State Department was working very hard to get the kind of degree of interest that there was going there. So even if it hasn't come up to a particular sort of announcement, and we're getting contrary indications about whether there really is going to be a jobs announcement, despite the fact that Gordon Brown sort of predicted it earlier on today, others have been saying no.
Yes.
But, you know, it certainly is an extra added reason why this person, who is not just an individual who you might have opinions about, but is a sort of an embodiment of the USA.
The fact that McGuinness and others don't sort of beard him in the den in Stormont Castle and berate him over Iraq, I think, it doesn't mean that people are leaving their moral consciences, I think, outside the door. One has to be pragmatic, and this is real politics. You know, we're only talking about trying to sort of get Northern Ireland's economy in a much better place than it has been. And it would be, apart from anything else, you know, I'm calling me old-fashioned, but it would be impolite, I think, if you're going to sort of bite the hand that potentially can feed you. And Mark is absolutely right. The effort, I think, and the energy that's gone into sort of trying to make that conference a success was estimable. You know, so they aren't going to turn around and say, well, you know, on the other hand, Mr. President, you know, and their views will be well known anyway to the White House. So, you know, it would just be sort of gilding the lily, really.